So welcome everyone to our policy training and Q&A for the Maui Nui Food Alliance. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Today we're going to have a brief overview of who we are as the Maui Nui Food Alliance, discuss our policy work, do introductions, and then launch into a conversation with Nate Hix of the Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute. As we go over the Maui Nui Food Alliance and our policy work, please prepare your answer to what you hope to get out of this training today, because we're going to go around and have everyone respond. Just some basic etiquette. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat. We ask that you be open-minded and present, and we look forward to hearing all of your voices today. This meeting will be recorded and shared on the Maui Nui Food Alliance YouTube channel. So who are we, the Maui Nui Food Alliance? We are a cross-sector collaborative dedicated to finding a sustainable future for our food systems on Lanai, Molokai, and Maui. We are guided by the values of collaboration, stewardship, and hope, with the vision of expanding our local food system to nourish and sustain the people of Maui Nui while fostering human, environmental, and economic health. Our work is guided by these three strategic priorities: to promote a culture of health, plan for a food future, and advocate for impact. And the role of our policy subcommittee is to execute strategy number 3, to advocate for impact. So we're guided by the question, how do we leverage public and private resources and influence to advance the Maui Nui Food Alliance's shared agenda for the development of a nutritious, ecologically resilient food supply, with the goal of persuading, educating, and mobilizing the public and key decision makers to advance our mission to support and promote a healthy food system for our future. I wanted to just show you guys an overview of what the Maui Nui Food Alliance looks like, including some of our working groups that we have yet to establish. But I just wanted to show the role of the policy subcommittee here and influencing the work that the rest of the Alliance does. So the policy subcommittee is going to take feedback from our food system subcommittee, our ag education working group, and our community outreach subcommittee, and then create policies based on those groups' priorities to help influence our work and decision-making in Maui County. Our focus is on Maui County specifically and filling that niche within ag and food systems work on the county level. And I just want to put on your radar, this is the first policy training that we've conducted as the Maui Nui Food Alliance, and we'll have future policy trainings focused on county level policy making and legislation, and also future meetings to determine our group's policy priorities based on the results of the food system needs assessment that we're currently conducting across Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. That needs assessment will help us determine our group's policy priorities, will establish our next steps as a group, and use this group to stay informed and leverage the Maui Nui Food Alliance network. We'd love to have you guys involved, and we can, we'll chat later about ways for you all to get involved with our policy work, but I'm so grateful to have you here today. And I would love to go around briefly and just hear your name and organization and just share what you hope to get out of this training. If you prefer, you can type it in the chat. But yeah, just one thing you hope to get out of this training. And as we're gearing up to go and do our introductions, I just want to introduce our guest of honor, Nate Hix, the Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute Food Access and Policy Advocacy Coordinator. We're so lucky today to have Nate lead us through this training on how to get involved in the statewide legislative process. Nate, could I please open it up to you, and then feel free to popcorn over to the next person.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Again, I am Nate Hix with Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute. I'm the Food Access Policy and Advocacy Coordinator, which is a long title for pretty much I think the shorter version is an anti-hunger lobbyist. So yeah, I work to try to get good legislation passed and other program changes made to help end hunger in Hawaii. And before this, I just started in September, but before this, I spent the last previous 4 years working on the minimum wage campaign, trying to boost our minimum wage up. So that's kind of my background and how I've been engaged in the advocacy effort here in Hawaii. So yeah, anybody else want to take it next? Go ahead.
I'll go next, Nate. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Valoria. I'm the new Maui Nui Heel Coalition Coordinator. I started in March 6th, so it's like my second week here on the job, but I'm just really grateful to be here. I'm also part of the steering committee of MNFA. So welcome on. What I'm excited to learn about is more policy advocacy and how to really engage just with our lawmakers and with our state legislator. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Christy.
Hi there, my name is Christy Inda. I'm a dietitian with Hui no Keola Pono, and I have been with the Hui for the past 4 years, but in a different capacity. So moving into a role where I'm going to be able to do more work within the community, and I'm just hoping to learn about what the issues are out there and how I can help move the organization forward in helping the community be healthier and have healthier nutrition. Thank you.
I'm Lauren Nelson. I'm the Maui County Food Access Coordinator, and I help to support the Maui Nui Food Alliance. Could I pass to you, Liv, then to Michelle, and then Rosemary?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Hi, everyone. My name is Liv Whittemore. I'm the Hawaii Farm to School Hui Special Projects Coordinator. So in that role, I have a very zoomed out view. I work with a lot of youth across Hawaii to help train them how to talk to legislators and how to testify on bills. And I'm really here today because I want to take this opportunity to zoom in a little bit and if I can learn from the folks here on policy advocacy through the Maui Nui lens.
Hi, my name is Michelle Winehouse, and I am in the HFUU Farmers Apprenticeship Program, just trying to start my farm right now. So I'm a new farmer on Lanai, and I'm also treasurer for the Lanai chapter, HFUU. What I want to get out of this is to learn to be comfortable in being part of policy making, offering up testimony, how to do that best, just being comfortable talking to legislatures about Lanai. We are often forgotten, and so I take my role as a farmer on Lanai very seriously, in that I'm probably one of the few representatives that can speak out. So just want to be more comfortable doing that and doing it in a Pono way.
Hello, everybody. I am Rosemary Gutierrez, and I work for University of Hawaii as an extension agent. I work mostly with commercial growers. And well, I really like to learn about policymakers. I can help to my growers to mostly to inform them how they can ask for things they need. Thank you.
Is that everybody? Okay, great. Very nice to meet you folks. Thanks for showing up. And I'm going to just go into sort of my presentation. I'm going to touch on a lot of topics on sort of the entire process and how it is, how we can stay involved. But I also want to make sure that as I'm going through this, it's very interactive. This is not intended to be like a me talking at you. I want to help you guys learn and figure out the things that you're already asking for. So please, if you have any questions, either interrupt me or put it in the chat. I will take breaks to ask for questions as well, but make sure that if there's anything that's confusing or I want too fast or there's something more specific you want to know about, by all means, please ask. That's kind of the whole intent behind it. So yeah, thank you again for being here, and we will try to get started. Let's see if we can do this. There. Hold on. Can you see this? How come I can't see this? Let's go.
While Nate pulls up the slideshow to share, I just wanted to again thank him so much for being here today. So Nate Hix serves as the Hawaii Public Health Institute Food Access and Policy and Advocacy Coordinator. He joined HiFi, Hawaii Public Health Institute, in 2022 to help increase food accessibility throughout all of Hawaii. And he's actively working towards everyone in Hawaii having food and nutrition security at all times. And I just want to thank Nate also, as you'll cover, for all of your advocacy efforts to raise our minimum wage across the state, which, as we know, is so essential for food access. So it's a true pleasure to have you here. Are you having luck sharing slides? Otherwise, I'm really happy to share and you can tell me.
No, I got it. Just a bit inept at the moment. I do want to drop the link to the slides here in the chat. I think people will have access. But yeah, let me get this started here. Okay. All right. Welcome, Maui Nui Food Alliance Policy Training Q&A. This is me. Hello. My email is there. My phone number is there. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out later. I know things are going to pop up as you go about it, and I definitely want to be a resource. If you have a quick issue, hey, I was thinking about doing this, what is your input? From my perspective, that's kind of the best way to learn and experience it as well, is like you're going to have in the moment things. And if you kind of just let it float by, or if you just don't engage with it, it's not going to be as robust as an experience. So please take my info down and don't be a stranger. Okay, so the Hawaii State Legislature, what is its purpose? This is a picture of the House of Representatives. And what is the purpose of the state legislature? And so just to give you a big sort of overview of how things work, the Hawaii is legally a state within the United States. And so it has to operate within the United States framework. And then within that, we have our own state laws that we are able to do some things, but aren't able to do others because of the United States laws, right? We can't do anything that's going to break laws that already exist, like the, amendments or the Constitution or the Interstate Commerce Clause. Those are probably the big ones that we always have to keep in mind, right? And so when you hear, oh, this federal court is ruling in a case in another state, it could impact us. One of the more recent ones is with gun legislation and figuring out how that's going to apply. And then within Hawaii, the Hawaii State Constitution grants counties authorities to make laws and things like that. But if they don't explicitly give the counties laws, they don't give counties the right to make laws, then they don't have it. And so one of the main issues where that has come up in my experience is with the minimum wage. And so Maui in particular, Councilmember Gabe Johnson would like the Maui minimum wage to be a lot higher than the state, but the state doesn't explicitly give it that ability to legislate minimum wage. And so there's a question of whether it falls under another law or another provision. And so Councilmember Johnson put in a law this year that would explicitly give the counties that ability. And so that's just sort of the context of how things work. Obviously, Hawaii falls under the US government, and then the counties fall under that. And so, yeah, Hawaii, one of the many states. And then here's our islands. And so the state has authority to regulate everything else that they haven't explicitly given to the counties. And so from my perspective, I think the state can be most helpful in making the world a better place. I've been focused heavily on poverty. And so this is where I think a lot of my experience comes in. Poverty is not a personal choice, it's a policy choice. And I think that's where the state can have a huge impact, right? The state regulates education, the state regulates minimum wages, the state regulates affordable housing. And so there are so many policy decisions that the state can make to help end poverty, to help end all of these struggles that people have. And so that's where I find the importance to be with the state legislature. And I'm going to just quickly highlight some of the, in my opinion, some of the more significant laws that have been passed here in Hawaii. All the way back in 1949, they established the University of Hawaii. Then in 1961, established a state income tax. In 1974, the state passed the Prepaid Healthcare Act, which required most employers in Hawaii to provide health insurance coverage to their employees who work more than 20 hours a week. This is at the time a hugely important and hugely significant and way ahead of its time law, where pretty much everybody who was working in Hawaii had health care, where this is well before the Affordable Care Act of 2010, which was a groundbreaking legislation at the time nationally. This was 36 years ahead of that. And so the power of state legislation to make lives of people better is hugely within the state. I know there's a lot of focus that always gets put on national politics, right? It's always in the headlines. Everybody knows, you know, who's running for national president and all of these things. But the state legislature has such a strong ability to make change that it's, I think, foolish of us to ignore. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to make way more tremendous change here locally as opposed to nationally. Other bills: legalized medical marijuana in 2000, legalized same-sex marriage in 2013, raised the minimum wage to purchase tobacco in 2019, and then again last year raised the minimum wage to eventually 18 by 2026. So to me, that's kind of the purpose of the state legislature. They can do almost anything they want as long as it doesn't ban or block federal law. So any questions there from anybody? Thoughts, comments?
No questions, Nate, but this is awesome. I love the just significant Hawaii laws, and I just screenshotted this slide, and I screenshotted the poverty is not a personal choice because I saw that once in an article, and I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm happy. It took me a little while to put this together. I had to cut a lot. I was like Googling, what are some big laws? And I was like, okay, yeah, these make sense. I like them. So mid-session update. So the legislative session in Hawaii starts in January and it ends in May. And so we have this, you know, few month period to get any bills passed. If they don't pass by May, we have to wait again until next year. And so this is for every bill. It's not just for poverty bills. It's not just for ag bills. It's not just for anything. It's all bills for the entire year have to start and finish their process within this few months period. And so here are the bills I'm specifically working on this year. The first one is a universal school meals bill, which would make free lunch and breakfast for all students. An additional $3 million for the SNAP Double Up Bucks program, which allows SNAP users to pretty much get half off of local produce. A bill to give $2 million to the food banks that would help them just run their operations. Currently, the food banks don't receive any state funds. They have to depend on their entire operation just based on donations and fundraising and things like that. And so this would help them be able to provide more food for folks. Then another bill, $3 million for Farm to Food Bank, which would again give the food banks money to spend specifically on local produce or local food, could be non-produce items as well, meat, things like that. And then another bill that I worked on was a bill to end the SNAP cliff. And so for those that don't know, if you make no money, you get SNAP benefits, food stamps, and as your income increases and it gets closer to the 200% federal poverty line, your SNAP benefits gradually decline. But once you get to the 200% federal poverty line, you fall off this cliff and your benefits go all the way to zero. And so there are several folks, a family of 4 could be getting roughly $1,000 a month right towards the end of that steep climb. And if they make just a little bit over, that $1,000 a month benefit completely dries up. And so this bill would extend that cliff a little bit. And so it's a big lift because SNAP and food stamps are a federally provided program. All of the money is federally funded. And we, as a state legislature, if this bill were to pass, would kick in that extra. So it would be very expensive and a huge lift, but I think definitely worth the effort. So any questions there on any of those bills before I move forward?
I have a question on HB 540. Where is it is it being heard, or like, is it dead, or?
We'll get to that shortly, but
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so here is a bill's journey to become law, and this is provided to us from the Legislative Reference Bureau of the Public Access Room. And it's kind of confusing. You don't need to study this, but it is an accurate depiction of how things work. I will get a little less confusing chart here shortly, but here's the calendar as I discussed before. As you can see, we have the opening day is January 18th, and the last day is May 4th. And so you have all of these hurdles, all of these purple spots are potential deadlines, where if a bill doesn't cross that deadline, cross that threshold by that deadline, it's going to die. And so a lot of bills die, most bills that were introduced. But here's a little more easy to read, I think, example of what the process is. And so we have the House and we have the Senate. They are co-branches of government. They are equal bodies. They just have different members of them. We have the House has 51 members. The Senate has 25 members. They're co-branches of government. And so for a bill to become law, it has to pass both of them. And it doesn't necessarily need to start in one chamber and then go to the other. It can start in the House and move to the Senate, or start in the Senate and move to the House. And so that's why here I just sort of labeled these first chamber, second chamber. They are equivalent. They can be swapped around. But anyway, we could take a bill like HB 540. And what happens is it has to go first through its first committee or first committees. And these are subject committees. So within the legislature, you have dozens of committees that could focus on any topic, really. But some of the main big ones are agriculture, the environment, labor, judiciary. And depending on the bill, it sort of results in what committee it's going to go to. And so, so this HB 540 bill, it was assigned to the Education Committee. That's its subject area committee because it's school meals for kids. And then the last committee is usually going to be Finance or Ways and Means in the House. They are sort of the equivalent of one another. And so it's going to have to cross both of these committees by these dates. So SB 540 had to, or HB 540 had to get out of its first committee hearing, Education, by February 16th, which it did. And then it had to clear Finance by March 3rd, which it did. And then it goes to its next committee in the other chamber. So it was a House bill, so HB 540. And then it got a scheduled hearing in the Education Committee here, but it did not pass. It died in that first committee. However, had it passed, it would have been waiting in its last committee, which would be Ways and Means in the Senate. And so if a bill makes it through all of these hurdles, then it goes to Conference Committee, which is 99% of the time, the second chamber is going to make a change to the bill. They can amend it in these committee hearings. And so they could, add an extra $1 million to the appropriation. They could take money away. They could change who it's for, right? The Universal School Meals Bill could be for public schools, but now it's going to be for private schools. They can make any changes they want, really, as long as it's within reason. But if any change is made, even a small number or a comma or an apostrophe, then it has to go to Conference Committee, which is where the committee chairs. So each committee has a head. So Dela Cruz in Ways and Means, Yamashita in Finance, Kadani in Education Senate, and Woodson in Education House. They would have to come together and decide on the final version of the bill that everybody's going to agree upon. And so they have from April 6th really to April 27th to hash out all of these details to figure out specifically what's the last bill going to be. So that's the path. Again, it does really look like this, but I tried to distill it down a little easier for you folks. So any questions there, any confusion on what sort of the process is?
Nate, I have a question. This is Michelle.
Yeah.
So if something dies, before it gets to the last committee and you really feel strongly about it, can you find out why? Can you resubmit? What can you do at that point to if you really believe that in that policy, in that bill?
Great question. And that's I think the first question you want to hear from an advocate, someone passionate. It died, but what can we do? Like, let's keep the fight going. So there are several different options. So all of these rules are kind of rules that are made up by the body itself, right? The House committee sets its own schedule, or the House of Representatives sets its own schedule, the Senate sets its own schedule, and they agree to these rules, right? You can look it up. They are the rules of the Senate or the rules of the House. And so by definition, they can break their own rules if they want. It's not some sort of like, these dates aren't some sort of constitutional law that requires them to hit these. And so if they really want it, they could waive the deadline and could actually get it heard. So you could ask the chair, you can ask the Speaker of the House or the Senate President to say, hey, this is really important. Those are very rare. That rarely happens, if ever, but it is a possibility. Another option is you could, on the House floor or on the Senate floor. So in between all of these committee hearings, all of these bills actually go to the entire body. So these committees are made up of anywhere between maybe 5 and 10 people, maybe 15 if they're bigger. But so it's just a little group, a little committee hearing room. And then after that, it's going to go to the floor of the House. So it's an entire body session and it gets voted on. So it'll have first reading, committee hearing, second reading. And in that second reading, they'll go through dozens or hundreds of bills at a time and they'll say, yeah, let's pass it, and they'll move on. If a bill dies, you can actually go to the Senate floor or the House floor and request within the bodies of the members to pull it out of its committee that killed it and bring it to the floor. And you can pretty much just surpass a committee hearing if you want. Again, this almost never happens, but again, technically possible. In terms of the more realistic options that you can take, I think the best choice is to try to maybe get the language that included in your bill inserted into another bill that's still alive. That's the first answer that I should have given, but that's the more reasonable approach if you really want to get it passed. What other bills are alive that are kind of related to it? You can't really put, like, let's say it's school meals bill. If all of those bills died that were talking about school meals, I might be able to get it input into another school bill that's talking about maybe funding for teacher pay or something, because it's close, but it could be tough. But I could not try to get the language inserted into a bill that would be like talking about, I don't know, repaving roads or funding for Department of Transportation. That would be too outside of the realm of possibility. But then you can always call the chair and ask them what they did or why. You can always reach out to them. Again, I want to make this clear. They work for you. We pay their salary. They are representatives of the people. As much as it seems like they are the bosses, they're not. We are the boss and they work for us. Although you do need to be polite to them and they will be very upset if you don't treat them with respect. But you can always reach out to them. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I still have more questions, but yes, it does.
We can get back to you. Tahani, you have a question?
Yes, I do. It's actually, I'm gonna dial it way back. So the slide prior where you mentioned opening day.
Mm-hmm.
So our organization was able to experience opening day for the first time and kind of went in on it blindly. But nonetheless, it was a learning experience. So I'm wondering if there's opportunity for like us to hui up with others, like other organizations who are in the same space to experience opening day together.
Your
There's
question.
opportunity and value in huiing up and doing opening day together.
Oh, yeah, you're just making a comment that it's good to team up with folks.
You know, because I ran into maybe a handful of Molokai groups there, and maybe 2 been there before, 2 haven't, and those that haven't were like, "Oh my gosh, we should do this together as a team." I was like, I mean, I'm down, but I don't know how others do it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, absolutely. Always helpful to work with somebody who's been there before. Yeah, I had somebody hold my hand my first opening day, and now I'm holding people's hands. But yeah, opening day, as you know, you've experienced it now. You could probably help organize people, especially if you're coming from neighbor islands. Yeah, working together to do that. Always helpful, especially when you show up with numbers. It's always a little more impressive too, saying, hey, we're allied together. It's not just me. I come with a lot of people who are supporting as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Glad to hear you say that, because that was the takeaway. I'm like, gosh, I feel like I had like more like, I put numbers on paper, but if I had people like physically with me and numbers, I think it might have had a little bit a different impact.
Yeah, and opening day can be tough too. It's, you know, it's kind of a madhouse. People are coming in and shaking hands. And so I think it's definitely a good opportunity to take advantage of. But there are other opportunities, I think, that are more valuable if you're trying to get your message across and really have a conversation with the legislature. I wouldn't recommend opening day as that opportunity. I would set up a meeting separate, send them material in advance so they can be prepared, so that they can have a more robust conversation with you on the merits of the bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for opening day itself is more of just a, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, this is how I am. This is what I'm doing. And I'm going to be pushing, you know, universal school meals. Please reach out with any questions. Thanks, mahalo. And that's kind of it. Or that's kind of like the rough estimate of kind of usually how it goes. But it's not always the case. Sometimes you get legislators who are going to pull you in and have a much more robust conversation. So Michelle, you had other questions I'm happy to discuss.
Lauren had a really good question she put in the chat. Actually, I'm good. I'm good, Nate. It's okay.
I can
think about it. Let it.
Yeah, Michelle, we will have more time for Q&A. We do want to hear all of your questions, and I really appreciate your question and Tihani's question as well. Keep them coming. Nate, all I asked was how often/when should we neighbor island folks advocate in person in Oahu to be the most strategic?
So it depends on the bill, but I would definitely recommend before session. Getting committee chairs on board before session starts, I think, is absolutely crucial. Again, as we discussed with these committees, it's the committee chairs who are in charge of these committees. And if they're not on board with your bill, they're not going to schedule a hearing and it's going to die. Period. You can try ways to pressure them to actually get it to hearing, all good. But I think the most valuable is ahead of session. So once you get your policy priorities in line, once you sort of have draft bills, legislation, text, that there's something that somebody can review, send it to the committee chair, ask them their opinion, ask for a meeting, see if you can get them on board. And then from there, you can sort of make your decision on how to stay active, right? Sometimes you get really lucky and the committee chair is a like super champion for your bill, and that's the best you can get. If you can get the subject committee chair to be a champion for your bill, or the finance or ways and means or whatever, that goes a huge long way, because they're going to be having conversations with their colleagues, trying to get them to go, and you're already almost guaranteed that it's going to make it through their own committee. If they're not on board, then you can try to sort of strategize on ways to try to move them or get other people to convince them. But that would be my first step. And then after that, having follow-up meetings throughout session to remind them, hey, remember we talked about this and how supportive you are? Yeah, let's keep it going. Again, legislators are human, just like all of us. Just because I probably committed to something 3 months ago doesn't necessarily mean I remember or it's top of mind. So just always giving a refresher is good as well. Okay, so moving on. Again, here's the path to the governor's desk, and here are all those bills I had listed before. And here's where they're at. So many have died. One of the double up bucks bill, the Senate bill, has died, but the other one is still alive, as you can see here. Free school meals, that HB 540, that died just last week, but the other bill, SB 154, is still alive. And so sort of asking that question before of, what do you do when your bill dies? What other bills are alive that can do what you want? So again, SB 1259 died, but no big deal. We got another one alive. HB 540, not a big deal. The food bank funding bills, both are moving, which is great. Farm to food bank bill, we actually have a hearing for that tomorrow in our last committee, which is great news. So well ahead of that April 6th deadline, which is approaching. And end SNAP cliff, again, I had sort of said how big of a lift it was, and both of them died very early. So not surprising, it was our first attempt at trying to get a bill like this passed, and it's extremely expensive. So not too surprising, but getting it past the first committee actually put it on people's radar. It was voted on, and we actually did get a lot of support for it. So that's kind of where the bills stand as now. Any questions? Does this make sense? Are you folks kind of understanding what's going on?
So Nate, this is Michelle again. So let's just say the end SNAP cliff, right? So those died. Like, what are you going to do now? Because there's nothing you can tack onto another, still alive bill.
First, you cry a little bit. You call your mom. You say, "I don't like doing this anymore. I want to come home." But no, this isn't my first session of having bills died. I worked on the minimum wage bill for 4 years, and it died in 2018 and 19 and 20 and 21. And we finally got it past 2022. So what you do is you figure out what stopped it, what killed it, what is the hesitancy towards this bill, and you work on making a better argument next year. And so depends on the bill, depends on the issue, depends why it died. I definitely know that the SNAP cliff bill is kind of misunderstood, and not a lot of people understand what's going on. It requires a lot of participation from the Department of Human Services. And I didn't do my outreach in advance before getting this bill heard, and I didn't get them on board, which was a mistake on my part. But now I've been engaged with the Department of Human Services, trying to get their support, trying to get them on board, talking with other chairs, providing more ammo, getting some national organizations involved. So those are all things that are just preparing for 2024. But unfortunately, at this point, I am not trying to weasel this into other bills. At this point. Now, there are other bills that I might want to weasel in if they had died, but this one is a huge bill that I don't find to be reasonable to try to sneak around at this point. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes total sense. And it actually, I liked your answer because you're not giving up on it too. So yeah, great.
Yeah, like I said, the minimum wage bill died for four straight years. And so you're talking to the person who's stubbornly persistent, for better or worse. So I don't know if it's good or bad, but I will stick with it. So here's another little highlight. Bills I work on. Universal school meals, right? 1 out of 2 is dead. 3 million for SNAP double up. 1 out of 2 is dead. Both are alive. 1 of 1 is alive for farm to food bank, and both died here. So that's the summary of what has happened. And so again, I'll stop for questions again, but then we're going to move on to sort of what we've done to try to help move these bills along. So any questions? Okay, so what have we done this session? There can be a lot of things that you can do. Again, sometimes things are easier than others, sometimes things are harder, and every bill is different, but here are the general strategies that we sort of take when we're trying to get bills passed. So again, I had already brought this up earlier, but meet with legislators, especially chairs. Find out the chair of your committee and get them on board. And I do want to say you want to be polite, especially early on. You want them to hopefully make it feel that it's their bill. Like, hey, we want to help you champion this, right? You want to put your name on it, and you can be the person. Politicians have big egos, and being able to champion something is an awesome opportunity. Organize supporters. You really want to get a coalition. We had talked about this earlier, but the more people that are on board, the more organizations that are on board, the better. Power in numbers. Committee chairs, when they accept testimony, they see, 120 people testified or organizations testified in support and only 3 opposed. That makes a very compelling case for why a bill should pass. And so getting them to be engaged and active is important. Get media attention, that's also important. Wanting to make sure that this is an issue just for yourself. It's not your own pet project, but this is something larger. And it depends on the issue too. I mean, there are some things that are super nuanced, like changing the definition of one thing that the media might not pay attention to. But if it's something that's newsworthy, get the media engaged, and hopefully they can tell a story on it, get people who can share their experience with potentially the negative outcomes of this bill not passing or the positive outcomes of it actually passing. Those can be helpful too. And then sharing that media with the key legislators. Hey, remember this bill we talked about? Here's a news article that's discussing exactly this thing. If you have the opportunity to end this terrible result by passing this bill, media attention can be very helpful. And then also submitting testimony, giving testimony. And so I'll get into a little more details on that, but being able to write testimony that's submitted, right? So every time a bill's up for a hearing, you get testimony in and you can sort of, the legislators read through it and decide, oh, okay, these are a lot of people saying good things. These are a lot of people saying bad things. And then you can show up in person during the hearing itself or via Zoom and actually provide oral testimony. And so that can be helpful as well. And then again, throughout the process, call chairs. Sometimes they're not scheduling a hearing for a bill and you're like, oh, the deadline's coming up. Call them, email them. Hey, schedule this bill for a hearing. It's really important. Again, they're human, and just like any of us, right? If somebody, let's just say, invites you to a party and you're like, oh, I don't know. But then all of a sudden 6 of your friends hit you up like, hey, are you coming to the party? Then you're like, oh, okay, fine, I'll come to the party. So again, being respectful, being polite, but continuing to say, hey, please schedule this bill for a hearing or please pass this bill can be important. And then write op-eds as well. So media attention is one part, but putting in an actual op-ed that you can write up or somebody can write up, sort of helping share the details of the policy or the benefits as well can be helpful. So I'm going to run through a few examples for you folks. So, but any quick questions here? We're good. We'll have time to focus on each of these points here, but any quick questions before we dive deeper into all these individual points? Okay, sweet. So meet with legislators, especially chairs. And so here was a little conference, the Food Systems Summit that was going on in early January. And so you have Ag Chair Gates and Vice Chair Kahaloa, as well as Agricultural Chair Mike Gabbard, and then Maui's Council Member Keani Rollins-Fernandez. And so having Gates and Gabbard in this summit was big because they're hanging out with a bunch of advocates, and we can have them on record saying, yeah, I support these bills. Yeah, I support these bills. And they can look out and see a room full of 100 people who are all championing these bills. And so they know that when those bills come to their desk, they're like, oh, I better schedule these bills and I better pass them because all those people that I just hung out with are really supportive and really want this to occur. So, so that was a good opportunity there. And then here's me at opening day. Again, just sort of doing the rounds, saying hello to folks. Again, trying to keep it brief, saying, hey, here are some things I'm working on. Appreciate your support in this. That's Senator Chang from Hawaii Kai and Kahala neighborhood. That's me with Representative Andrew Garrett from Manoa on Oahu. And then here is me with Representative Takanuchi. I think she's near downtown Nu'uanu area. And then here with Representative Hussey Burdick, who's I think Kailua neighborhood, yes. So again, just an opportunity to introduce yourself. And then again, you know, you don't need to be best friends with these people by all means, but have a decent relationship, say hello when you see them or something like that. A friendly face when they come up for testimony is always good. Again, they're human just like us. If a friend is asking for a bill, you're more likely to pass it than someone you don't like. So continuing to build positive relationships is helpful. Again, even if they kill your bills, you don't want to just burn all your bridges and torch them in the media or whatever, because they're going to be the ones that are going to have to pass your bill next year. So it's always a give and take. So what have we done this session? Oh yeah, any questions there about meeting with legislators?
I have a question. This is going to sound kind of weird, but is it against the rules to, like, if I'm a farmer and I'm selling wing beans and I want them to support a bill on, I don't know, some sort of agriculture bill, is it wrong to leave them with like 10 wing beans and go, here's something from my farm, and it has a little note that says, thank you for supporting HB something, something, something? Is that against the rules?
Recently, yes. I think about 2 or 3 years ago, you could have done that, but now they've banned all gifts. So no gifts of any kind except for leis. So they will say leis are appropriate gifts, but no other gifts. It's a very specific law. So great question, but no gifts. Any other questions? Okay, what else have we done this session? Organized supporters. And so for some of these groups, we have the Obesity Prevention Task Force. It's a coalition of, I don't know, a few dozen organizations. And it's our job to keep them engaged, keep them involved. And so we send out these action alerts. Aloha Obesity Prevention Task Force, debucks has been scheduled, HB 1248. This is the double up bucks, your support. So the hearing notice is here, talking points are here. And then here are other opportunities for you to get engaged. And so most people aren't active at the Capitol. Most people aren't doing this. And so this is a good way to keep people who are just subscribed to a newsletter informed and can take quick action when the opportunity comes. Here's another group, a Hawaii Hunger Action Network, similar thing. Hey, here are some priority bills that we're working on. School meal subsidy, farm to food bank, and dedicated food bank forms. And so, yeah, these are a way to keep people organized. There are other ways too, and it depends on the issue. But from my experience, it depends on the issue, and depends how active and how much capital you want to expend. But I run a listserv for the minimum wage campaign, and I have, I think, like maybe like 1,000 people on there, and we can send out an email, and you'll get maybe 5-10 people that are actually going to do the thing. As is the case, I'm also just as guilty as the people that are following. You get emails, they can be cumbersome. You're like, I'm busy, I don't want to deal with this right now. So if you really need help and you're really trying to get action and you're not having success either through email or your other channels, text your friends, hey, walk them through the process. Please submit testimony, please do this. If you're willing to take the time to reach out to somebody as an individual that you know, they are much more likely to take the time to actually participate and do the thing itself. So fortunately, I haven't had to take that action in a while, but sometimes when things really are needed, then rip out 50 text messages to your friends, you'll probably get 47 of them to actually do it, so something to help when you're talking about organizing your supporters. But again, you can't always do that, right? Your friends are going to start to tune you out as well. So I like to use that as a last second effort when it matters. Any questions there? Okay, moving on. Get media attention. So here are just a number of different news articles that have come out over the last few weeks talking about people being hungry. And again, sending this to folks, making sure that they are sending it to legislators, making sure that they're aware, hey, this is a big problem. Look at all this media attention. Do you want to be the person who doesn't help? Or do you want to be the person that really steps up and saves it? There's plenty of positive attention if you can do the right thing. Yeah, questions there, media attention. Okay, what have we done this session? Submit testimony. And so here's some draft not draft testimony. This is a testimony I actually submitted on the ending the stamp cliff. And as you can see here, Again, I put this chart in, which is not necessary, but I dig into numbers. I'm a former math teacher, so I can, I have dreams about making beautiful charts that are easy to understand. But anyway, so you can see here, federal SNAP benefits start high and then they can decline, and then there's this big cliff. And so I didn't need to put a chart in my testimony, but because it was there, I thought it was a good way to visualize for the legislators how significant this issue is. And then there's other points that I included here as well. Too many ALICE households are without sufficient support. Large SNAP cliff penalizes those who earn more. And then another chart here showing the net. So as you can see, I'm like selling this to you. I'm trying to organize you folks for next year when we try to get this bill passed. As you can see here, if a family of 4 is making $60K, they're getting $56,000 in after-tax income and includes SNAP benefits. But if they make an additional $5,000, their net income drops by $8K because of these lost SNAP benefits. And so again, highlighting this for our legislators. And other testimony that's not as chart heavy is something like this, pretty straightforward. Hey, here's why this bill is important. Here's what it could do. And here's why we think we want you to get this going. So that would be submitting testimony. Question, Nate, can you talk about social media attention, how effective is it in organizing supporters and applying pressure to legislature? Good question, Olivia. So social media is also a good one. So when you're trying to organize supporters, it really depends. Engagement is higher on Facebook, Instagram a little less so, and Twitter here in Hawaii I don't think is super active, and so it's not super helpful. But yeah, it can definitely help. But I find the emailing is more beneficial, but you can get a few people engaged. Social media is definitely the lower tier down in terms of getting people active. Does that help answer? Sweet. Okay. Other questions on submitting testimony? Okay. So giving testimony. So this is the oral testimony. I'm going to show you one of my testimonies that I gave in person. So let's see if we can get this to work.
Hawaii Public Health Institute. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Nate Hix here with Hawaii Public Health Institute, Food Access Policy and Advocacy Coordinator. And I just want to highlight a few things. We stand on a written testimony, but also a lot of families are just above the 200% federal poverty line threshold. You know, a family of 4 making $64,000 receives no SNAP benefits despite being in significant need. This huge drop off in cliff, they're losing $10,000 or more per year just by adding or by earning just a few extra dollars, $100, $1,000. And so they're earning more, but have less to spend. And that's a huge negative impact, not only on the family, but the economy as a whole. And I also want to point to one correction I think that needs to be made at the end that decreases the gradual decline per person rather than per household. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nate. Next up.
So yeah, so the goal is for most hearings, you have a 2-minute limit. That's not always the case, but trying to keep it short, to the point, make it clear. Again, try to be positive, try to highlight the benefits that can happen. And then in this one, I thought there was a bit of an error in the draft of the bill, and I was hoping they would make a change. So I wanted to point that out as well. Any questions there?
So I have a question. This is Michelle again. If you find that somebody gives testimony and it's not correct, they lied, basically, is there anything you could do about that?
That's rare. It does occur. I guess it depends on the issue. Actually, what am I talking about? Yeah, the minimum wage bill, they were lying all the time. Oh, the sky's going to fall if we raise the minimum wage. So you can, if you anticipate it's going to occur, if you know the talking points of the opposition, you can rebuff it in your own written testimony. And then you can, if you're testifying after them, which is a kind of a trick, if you submit your testimony late, you're going to be at the end of the list of speakers. And so you have time to maybe change what you're going to say orally based on somebody else's previous testimony. So I do know a few people who choose to do that for this very reason. But If you've already given your testimony, there's nothing you can do. It's completely run by the chair. The only opportunity you're going to have to maybe speak on a specific issue is if they specifically call you up for questioning after you've given all your testimony. So the process is everybody gives their testimony, and then the chair will say, oh, are there any questions? From the members, the committee members can ask questions of the public. And so they'll call some people up like, oh, I would like you to come speak more on this, or what about that? And so in that instance, you might be able to rebuff some of the comments, but that's completely up to the chair and the members in the committee. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And you can also follow up after the hearing in an email or saying, hey, I heard this. That's also possible too. But usually the hearing is going to be over by then anyway. So, but it also a good opportunity to prepare for the next hearing if the bill does pass. So, and I'm going to just show some Zoom testimony as well. I do live on Oahu, so I can show up in person. But for those that are on neighbor islands, like you folks, you can show up and give Zoom testimony. And I think it's also very important. So I'm going to play this.
Thank you. Next to testify for Hawaii Hunger Action Network, Jordan Smith.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jordan. I'm speaking in support of HB 540 on behalf of the Hawaii Hunger Action Network, a statewide network of advocates dedicated to ensuring all people in Hawaii have enough food to live healthy, dignified, and productive lives. As mentioned, Hawaii is one of more than 20 states across the nation currently considering universal free school meals legislation. And like the 50 pages of supportive testimony received today, we are all in agreement that we owe our students equal access to nutritious school meals. The conversation really comes down to cost. So I implore the legislature to request more details from the Department of Education on how they arrived at their cost estimates. 2 different local advocacy organizations and the National Food Research and Action Center have run cost estimates for Hawaii, and these estimates come nowhere close to the figures being proposed by the department. I continue to be shocked by the pages of testimony from children and teachers sharing their firsthand experience of watching their students and peers be denied meals, and hope the legislature can support and pass this bill. Thank you.
So actually that's I didn't mean to do that. So that's a good example of somebody knowing what the talking points are from another group and addressing them in their oral testimony. So there you go. So yeah, both very effective. They have big TV screens up in the committee hearing so that they can watch your face on 50 inches in front of them. So yeah, that's giving testimony. I think it can be very helpful, especially, if you have 3, 4, 5, 6 people speaking in support, it really does help push the message home. So any questions there?
Nate, I had a question. I thought that the state Senate was going to, or legislator was going to, everything had to be in person now? Or did they? No, okay.
Yeah, thankfully it's stuck around. I think it's been very helpful for a lot of people. So yeah, plenty of Zoom. Okay, what have we done in the session? Call chairs, committee members. And so again, you can go to the Capitol website and they list all the committees and you can find out all their members. And so again, like we said, we have Cedric Gates, the chair of the Ag Committee in the House, John Mizuno, chair of the Human Services Committee, being in touch with them, asking them, hey, will you hear this, blah, 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 blah. And working with them if they have questions or concerns is very important. Yeah, Tehani, question.
Yes. So I know there's you like we're given the option, right, of sending in a written testimony and then doing one, whether it be in person or Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Is one more effective than the other?
So the oral testimony is helpful. They're both very good. And I guess I don't know the answer because it's kind of up to the chair and the members to how they feel. But I do think in person and showing up does have significant value. If you can get a bill with 10 people in the room, that's like, whoa, there's a lot of support. If the bill doesn't have anybody showing up for it, it doesn't hold as much weight. But getting a few dozen written testimonies is also very significant too. So the numbers are big. Having bigger numbers is always helpful. I wouldn't say that and also you have to submit written testimony in order to give oral testimony. You can't do just oral. So yeah, if you do written testimony for sure, and if you have the opportunity, if you have the time, giving it in person is helpful. And it depends on the bill, right? You might have other folks that can speak to it anyway, but having at least one is good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, other questions on contacting your committee chairs or the members? Okay, again, write op-eds. Here are some headlines of op-eds that have been written on specific issues. Always helpful to get it in the paper. Especially, I think, well, at least I'm Oahu centric, but Star Advertiser has tons of readers and the legislators will pay attention. And so if you make a comment about this, they'll be like, oh, people are putting in time on this issue. I don't want to be the one to kill it. So, okay, any questions on this? Otherwise, time for action. Who's ready? Time to do some work. Okay. I'm going to have us walk through the process of actually submitting testimony. And so, again, we do have this Legislative Reference Bureau Public Access Room. They have a great, pretty good website that can help folks. Let me see what's up. So that's a good resource. So bookmark that if you want to, but you want to be able to ask for a hearing and you want to be able to submit testimony. And so I'll go through the testimony process with you folks right now. But if I could, if you have the opportunity, please open up this website, the capital.hawaii.gov website, and we're going to walk through what it's like to submit testimony. Hopefully this goes smoothly for you, and then you can help somebody else do the same. So let me see here. I'm going to stop the slideshow and share my screen here. Yeah, good. So go to this capital.hawaii.gov, and actually the website just got revamped. It's brand new for this legislative session. It actually is pretty nice. It took me a little while to learn the new tips and tricks, but I think I've got the hang of it. Wait, you see the Capitol website, correct? Okay, great. So from here, if you haven't already, you're going to need to register. Has anybody registered already? Okay, so a few of you. Otherwise, register. It's pretty straightforward. Name, organization, email, verify email, create password, just like anything else. It's pretty straightforward. So if you have the opportunity, I'm going to give you folks like a minute or two to do that. And then we're going to log in and actually do the process. So I'll give you folks a little time. But while that's going on, I'm going to pull up the bill that I'm going to ask us to participate in. And it's HB 430, the Farm to Food Bank bill. Oops. And so in this top box, you can just type in HB 430, hit enter, and it'll, well, that's not, oops, SB 430, see? There we go. Relating to Hawaii Farm to Food Bank Program, SB 430. And so this is the bill page, and it's extremely helpful. And I know oftentimes there are things in Hawaii that you go, oh man, it's so much better on the mainland, this, that, and the other. This is an instance where I think we have one of the best, if not the best, legislative websites in the country. It's super helpful. It's super robust. You can do tons of stuff. It's very up to date. I mean, you can do anything you want with it. It's great. And so I'm just going to walk through the different information here. So here are the versions of the bill. So it started as SB 430, and then after its first committee, it got amended and it went to it got a Senate draft number 1. And after the second committee, it got a new draft, Senate draft 2. And then it went on to get a new into the House, and now it has a new draft HD. So, and you can look at the text of the bill, right? So this is the bill. This is it. This is exactly the bill. And you can look up and see the newest draft. So HD1 is going to be the newest draft, and that's the bill. That's what they're debating passing, right? Sometimes they're written in pretty easy to understand language, but other times it's like super confusing and it's like referencing all these points, but that's about that. And then you can click and you can read testimony for other hearings as well. And so this is the AEN, I think Ag Environmental Committee. And this is all of the testimony that has been submitted. So this is the Department of Labor and Industrialization Relations testimony. And then we have Department of Budget Finance. And there are 26 pages of testimony. Hawaii Farm Bureau testifying in support, Ulupono, Sherry Pollock, right? You have all these groups. And so this is what gets submitted and the committees are going to look at and read in terms of written testimony. And so then the question of, written and in person. And so what usually happens is you're going to have organizations, many organizations submit in support and individuals. But what's not going to happen is most of them won't give oral testimony, but you're going to get some of the people who are it's most important to. And so that's the opportunity there. Yeah, Tehani.
And then in terms of submitting testimony, like, is it better to keep it at one page?
Yes.
Versus two?
Yes, usually the guideline is one page. Depends if your margins and things like that, or if you have some amazing charts to throw in, that could push it back a little further. But the goal is usually one page. But if you're a super expert and you have all this detailed information that you really need to share, by all means, go longer. But if you're just kind of along for the ride and you're just like, yeah, I support, yeah, there's no reason for you to write this huge, lengthy thing. So usually just the experts and the people who are really in the weeds on it would submit longer than a page.
Thank you.
Okay, are we all registered at this point? Okay, great. So we pulled up to this page. I think there's a link in the chat. Otherwise, again, just type in SB 430 relating to Hawaii Farm to Food Bank. And you'll see here, if we scroll down, bill scheduled to be heard by Finance on Wednesday, tomorrow, at 3 p.m. in House Conference Room 308. And so establishes the Hawaii Farm to Food Bank, and the description establishes the Hawaii Farm to Food Bank Program and Hawaii Food Assistance Program Special Fund to alleviate food shortages in the state. And actually, I'm going to drop in the talking points for this bill. Oh, actually, here's somewhere. Give me 2 seconds. So I'm going to drop this here. And if you scroll down one page to Farm to Food Bank, this is what the advocates have put together to help give people like you the opportunity to sort of read more about it, what's in the bill, and why this bill is important. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to pull this up for those already. Again, this bill establishes the Hawaii Farm to Food Bank Program, Hawaii Food Assistance Program. Bill require the Office of Community Services, food banks get food. Why this bill is important. So these are the talking points that you folks can use to sort of craft your testimony. Farm to Food Bank programs are a straightforward win-win, provide healthy food to those who need it. Food banks are very important, serve a critical role. They're experiencing increased demand like never before. Many states support funding for food banks to purchase food to ensure they meet food security needs. And then again, like I said, the testimony's there, you can look at that. And so let's try this again. Yeah, here we go. And so because there's a hearing scheduled, here in Hawaii, we do have a 48-hour advance notice for bills to get a hearing. And so this notice had to have come out by yesterday by 3 p.m., 48 hours in advance. And so we have this two-day window. And in that 2-day window, you have, and it can be longer than that. You can make a notice 7 days in advance if you want. Because this bill is scheduled for hearing tomorrow, you have the opportunity to click submit testimony now. And don't worry, you can click this and you're not submitted yet, but it's going to pull up a thing here. Oh, you got to log in. And then what'll come up here is enter bill or measure and click continue. So SB 430, you hit continue. And then it'll come up something like this. Your position, support, testifying as an individual citizen or on behalf of an organization, depends, what your role is. And then how will you be testifying? Again, written only or remotely via Zoom. If you are going to testify remotely via Zoom, they often require you to submit testimony at least 24 hours in advance. And so if you're late to submitting written, it's quite a bit more difficult to actually do Zoom testimony. But if you want to do it in person, you can just submit late and show up. So yeah, there are more details about that. But then again, please submit your written testimony using the options below. If you put something up, like make a PDF or a Word doc, you can download that and upload it, or you can just type it in here. And so if you want, take the opportunity right now to write something up. But this is the process. Once you write it up, then you're just going to hit submit. And that's that. Your testimony is out, and it will be in that laundry list of other testifiers as well. So any questions there on submitting testimony?
I have one. What are the tools that you use to ensure that you're writing it to the proper chairs?
Writing it to the proper chairs?
Or just what are the tools that you use to ensure that, like, in your testimony, you are addressing the proper chairs?
Yeah, so let's do this. So this bill, SB 430, you'll see is given a hearing in finance, and you can go to your hearing notices. And so ag, wham, ag. So here's your finance hearing, March 29th, tomorrow at 3 p.m. So hearing notice is here. And this is the entire agenda for this hearing. So they're going to hear all of these bills tomorrow at 3 p.m. And this is the Committee on Finance. The chair is first Rep. Kyle Yamashita. The vice chair is Rep. Lisa Kitagawa. And then here are all the other members. And so if you are trying to specifically address the committee, you can write this out and sometimes include the date. And you can look at other testimony on these bills as well to see kind of what other people do. If you're just typing it in, you usually don't have to do that. It's not super common if you're just as an individual, but if you're uploading a PDF or something, usually you're going to have some sort of heading describing in detail the specific hearing and things like that. So is this what you're asking for? Okay, great. And again, we'll look up here. I'll just pull up some other testimony. And so you can see here, to Chair Gabbard. This is for a different hearing, not the finance hearing. The Honorable Vice Chair Richards, date, time, place, from, position, SB. So a lot of the PDFs are going to have this sort of header information on the specific bill itself. Let's see, mine there somewhere. Looks like that. But yeah, other questions on submitting testimony? Okay. Does everybody have the hang of it? They think they were able to register, find the bill, click on submit testimony, and go through the process there? Does everybody feel like reasonably comfortable with their ability to navigate? Yeah, okay, sweet. Let me pull up the rest of the slides then. Okay, and yeah, if you have other questions on how things work and you don't feel like reaching out to me, we do have this public access room, which is absolutely super helpful. Any questions about anything at all regarding the legislature, they are very nice people. They are happy to get calls, like it's their job, and they're choosing to do it because I think they really care. And so, hey, when is this bill, like what's the next step in this process, or who should I call? They're there to be like, oh yeah, direct your calls to this person, or here's the next hearing notice, or here's the deadline, or here's what's coming up next. So yeah, feel free to call them, but they also have a lot of tools on their website to help. So using the legislator's website, Engagement 101. Let's pull this up actually. I'll just show you this real quick. So here's the home page. And if you go to, here's the homepage, public access room, using the legislature's website. They have plenty of guides. And then Engagement 101, they also have guides, finding your own senator and representative, register for an account, sign up for hearing notices, submitting testimony. I didn't talk about signing up for hearing notices, but you can do that to get alerts to your email when bills come up for a hearing. Actually, we can walk you through that real quick. So my legislature, click on view, and then hearing notifications, and then you just put in the bill here that you want to do. So SB 430, hit add, and you're just going to get an email that will tell you when the hearings come out. It will include all of it's the exact same notice that I'd already had showed you folks, but that's pretty much that. So again, very good resource. Use it. And then also other things that you can do is ask for a hearing. So that's the submitting testimony part when a bill already gets a hearing. But finding your committee chair and asking them to schedule the bill for a hearing is important too. So if we go back and we look at all of these other bills that are still alive, we still need a hearing on HB 314. Actually, that just came out. We need a hearing on SB 460. We need a hearing on HB 1248. We need a hearing on SB 154. And actually, if you folks wanted, this one is actually going to need some help. And so you could go out and write an email to Chair Yamashita. So, oops. So legislature, House, committees, Finance Committee, Chair Yamashita. Click that, write an email saying, aloha Chair Yamashita, please give a hearing to SB 154. This is a very important bill to make sure all kids can eat school meals, so it's free. I really support this and hope you can schedule a bill. Boom, done. Again, can be very helpful. And I will probably be writing out emails to folks asking them to do exactly this thing. It is a big bill. We're very hopeful that it passes, but we do need a hearing and we don't know if we're going to get one. So please do this. Okay, I see a question. I just started using alerts this year and it's been super helpful. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Continuing on, I know we're running out of time. How to advocate and provide testimony. So I want to just again reiterate written testimony. We've walked through Zoom. You have that opportunity there in person, and then getting others involved as well. So like I said, text somebody saying, hey, this bill's important. We need extra bodies in the room, or we need somebody to get on Zoom, or we need more people to testify. Those can all be helpful, right? Numbers are important. Showing up on Zoom or in person is important. But at the bare minimum, getting written testimony in, at least from a few people, is important. But getting the hearing in the first place is also hugely important. So asking the chair for a hearing for a bill, especially if the deadline's coming up, is important. So any questions there? Okay. Key takeaways. I would highlight, get action alerts from organizations. So like I said, we have these obesity prevention task force that we do email blasts to. We have the Hawaii Hunger Action Network, but our company as well, Hi-Fi, has its own action alert page, Hawaii Appleseed, Food and Policy, HAPA. These are just some other organizations that are engaged in similar work that you can sign up to get alerts for if you're interested in helping that organization push their agenda, right? If you are trying to start your own, that's probably a big lift, but it's also good to maybe join other organizations and help push your bill that way. oh, we got one of our bills as a priority for this larger group. That's huge because now we've gotten the whole group that's already existing to push it. So that's another way to help get engaged. Call, email legislators, especially your own. People are receptive to your own legislator and to committee chairs. Committee chairs are crucial to a bill's success. Submit testimony and organize others to do the same. So I think I did it. Any questions? Okay, that is it for my presentation. If there's anything in particular, I did save some time for Q&A on not maybe what I've specifically talked about, or something else that you're interested in. By all means, now is the time.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is there any reason why they won't pass your bill? So you know, because they just don't like you or anything in the process?
So why would they not schedule a hearing or pass a bill is what you're
Yes.
asking? So if they don't like the bill, they're not going to hear it. They could also not like you. That's rare. You're going to really have to do a lot to get under. You actually don't have to do a lot. You would have to be intentional in trying to get under their skin. But usually it's because they don't like the bill, right? Like the universe or the expanding the SNAP benefit cliff, that probably would cost $500 million a year. And that's a lot of money compared to where they're spending their money elsewhere. And so that's an easy way for them to say no. Other bills they just don't like, right? Some bills are trying to advocate for regulating tobacco, banning flavored tobacco, but not all the legislators are on board. They're like, no, I think flavored tobacco is just fine. I don't want to ban it. So there are a number of reasons why they do it. But hopefully and fortunately, you have the opportunity to reach out to the chair and specifically ask them. It's not guaranteed that they're going to give you an answer, but you always have the opportunity. And if you can get more people organized and get them to call, you're more likely to get a more reasonable response.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Going once? Okay, sweet. Hey, well, thank you. I do hope this was helpful. Again, you have my email address and phone number if anything does come up. I know the process can be very overwhelming at first, but it's just these little steps that you can take that can really make a big difference. So thanks again. And yeah, appreciate your time, everybody.
Thank you so much, Nate, for this amazing guidance on how we can engage in the legislative process. And just thank you for kind of letting us know where we're at with these key food access bills mid-session. I think it's so important to have a mid-session check-in. Thank you for the work that you do with Hawaiʻi Public Health Institute and for your time today. That was awesome. So we will share this recording online on the Maui Nui Food Alliance YouTube channel, and I look forward to meeting with you guys in May for our county level policy training. And if you want to stay informed with the Maui Nui Food Alliance and our next steps, our next policy trainings and meetings with the policy subcommittee, please sign up for our newsletter. And if you've not already, please join the Maui Nui Food Alliance through our membership forum online. And I'll share these slides and all of the links that we discussed today. Thank you all so much. Appreciate your time. Mahalo, Nate, again. Mahalo, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Lauren, for just hosting this workshop. It was really eventful and I learned a lot. So thank you both.
Thank you all. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.